The following categories of people have been invited: 17 delegates from each district, all members of parliament elect, all former presidential candidates who participated in the January 14 general election, all ministers and ministers of state, all SEC members, members of the East African Legislative Assembly, a few people belonging to the business community, a few religious leaders, a few cultural leaders, half the list of the normal VIPs. Over and above, the National Organizing Committee is strongly guided to observe SOPs to avoid guests invited from both within the country and those from outside Uganda, the dangers of contracting COVID-19. His Excellency the President has extended invitations to 42 heads of state, both from Africa and the rest of the world, and so far, 21 have confirmed attendance.
Facing the 2021 general elections. So we had contingencies, counter response plans against any threats and vulnerabilities surrounding the general elections. At this stage, we want to inform the public that there are no specific threats directed towards the swearing-in ceremony, although we do anticipate, as security agencies, disruptive activities, basically by disgruntled politicians and supporters whom we anticipate will want to disrupt the process through the use of petrol bombs. We've seen previously attempts by some of these negative elements hurling petrol bombs at motorists. So we anticipate the use of petrol bombs, other disruptive activities like burning tires, wanting to block roads, and maybe hold demonstrations. However, our joint intelligence components, on top of this game, they are picking as much intelligence information as possible, and they continue to gather intelligence on all forms of threats and on all forms of political threats and the would-be perpetrators. We're also monitoring the activities of some of the disgruntled politicians and supporters who continue with their usual rhetoric of threatening violence and also threatening to hold political demonstrations. But we've established that most of these are just mere threats that do not pose any serious risk of violence. They continue that rhetoric of threats to violence. We are going to do this, we are going to block the swearing-in ceremony, but these are threats that not pose much serious risk. Going forward, our joint operation command centers, that is the JOC centers across the country, are fully alert with the relevant intelligence, operative, and investigative components operating 24/7. Under these JOC centers, we are closely monitoring a wide range of anticipated threats, especially acts of domestic extremism. If there are any acts of external influence, we are also monitoring through these JOC centers any radical behavior from probably domestic terror cells is also something that we are closely monitoring. Then, similarly, we are also monitoring all our border areas and crossing points, especially we've put emphasis on the West Nile region following probably some potential threats on the other side of the northeastern DRC. We are not going to go into the specific details, but we are more than prepared to do anything within our means as the Joint Task Force to maintain law and order in the country. We urge all Ugandans and visitors in the country to remain peaceful, law-abiding, and also to report any suspicious behavior to the nearest police unit. Then our Directorate of Crime Intelligence conducted raids on stores dealing in suspected stolen metals and electricity gadgets believed to be for Umeme. This is a raid which they conducted in close coordination with the territorial units in Chivoga and Old Kampala on major metal business locations in Kaiwa zone. Kaiwa zone is found in Rubaga, and these ones were basically dealing in suspected stolen electric gadgets and transmission wires from electric poles, utilities, especially in Chivoga district. I think about like 3 or 4 weeks ago, most of you could have seen a number of transmission lines that were being vandalized, and even the transmission wires were stolen and other electric utilities. Now, our Directorate of Crime Intelligence started following up on this matter following complaints of vandalism and sabotage on the transmission lines of electricity in Chivoga district. We established that the criminals would climb the electricity transmission lines and cut these lines at top. They would also steal surge arresters, insulators, and other electric gadgets, thus disrupting electricity supply in Chivoga district and other places. So they managed to track down the suspects up to Kaiwa zone in Rubaga and recovered an assortment of electric gadgets, metals, cable wires worth Uganda shillings 3 billion. We go to a technical consultant from Umeme who gave us an estimate that the assortment of gadgets that were recovered were worth 3 billion. Amongst them were 1,460 pieces of 50 millimeter bimetal clamps, then 3,480 pieces of real insulators, then 840 pieces of polymeric insulators, 5,646 pieces of 60 millimeter PG clamps, 510 surge arresters. There are 80 different categories of exhibits which we actually recovered. So far, 7 suspects